I'm big, I'm bad, and I'm back. Hello, everybody. I'm John Buffone, and I am back for my 6th year here at the Barroom. Honest to God, when I started at the Barroom, the #1 movie in America was Finding Dory. That's how long I've been around here at the Barroom. But it's scheduled release day, so you know I can't miss that. I grew up near Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, so I love to prognosticate. Yes, I did work in a Groundhog Day joke there. But in just a few minutes, Aldo Gandia and Shimon will join me to do a deep dive into the 2022 schedule for the Chicago Bears. But if you will indulge me for just a little while, I'd like to take the first crack at this schedule. So let's go ahead and put up that full screen graphic. Yes, there's the spaceships are back for the primetime game. Aldo Gandia sticking with tradition there. We got the spaceships. They're supposed to be spotlights. They're spaceships. I don't care what you say. And if you're listening to the audio version, have no fear. I will paint such a clear picture with my words, you'll feel like you're watching the show as well. So let's go over the 2022 Chicago Bears football schedule. Very interesting schedule. If you look at this just holistically, kind of a class of 21 reunion for Justin Fields. Week 1 right off the bat gets to go head-to-head with Trey Lance of San Francisco, Davis Mills week 3, Mac Jones in week 7, and then Zach Wilson week 12. So, of course, the national pundits are going to be weighing the value of all these quarterbacks depending on how they play against each other, unjustly so, by the way. But you're going to see a lot of comparisons there. Is Trey Lance better than Fields? Is Fields better than Zach Wilson? Did the Patriots make the right decision? So get ready for all those fun storylines as we progress through the season. And once again, primetime games. If you've listened to me on this network before, you know that I despise the Bears in primetime whenever they're not a very good squad, but that's neither here nor there. So let's just go ahead and just look at this schedule and see how many wins, at least I think the Bears will get. How many wins do you think the Bears are going to get this year? But let's go ahead and look at the schedule. Week 1, I think, listen, it's the first game where Trey Lance is the unequivocal starter in San Francisco. He's going to be the man. That's granted if they trade Jimmy Garoppolo. That hasn't happened yet, but we'll see. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Trey Lance. He's going to go to Chicago. Justin Fields has more playing experience. Going I think that from top to bottom, the San Francisco 49ers have more talent. They're going to be able to go in and win on the road week 1. So I think the Bears start 0-1. And then I don't need to give you too much analysis on week 2. I hate when the Bears have to go into primetime Sunday night into Green Bay. I can't stand watching that. They got to go against Aaron Rodgers. Now, listen, the weapons in Green Bay have taken a step back. They lose Devontae Adams. We're not sure about what their wide receiver core is going to look like. Do I think the Green Bay Packers are a Super Bowl contender this year? No. Do I think they're good enough to beat the Chicago Bears at home? Yeah, I do. So I think the Bears start out 0-2. And then I think that, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say I think the Bears are going to beat the Texans at home in week 3. The Texans are kind of a tire fire. They got plenty of picks from the Deshaun Watson trade, and Davis Mills has shown some sparks, I guess. But I think that they can hold their own against the Texans at home. So I got them at 1-2. Then things get a little loose. I think that they can go on the road and beat the Giants. The Giants, I think they had a pretty good draft, but I think that the Bears can beat them. I think the Giants are not a very good football team. So I think that they can go in week 4 and beat the Giants, have a little 2-game win streak there, and even it up at 2-2. And then I think that they're going to end up splitting with the Vikings this year, 1-1 there. So let's just give them a loss on the road week 5 against the Vikings. I mean, new coach, new GM, same Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Thielen, all those guys. So I think they're going to split with the Vikings. I think they lose in week 5. And then here's the thing. Then Thursday night against the Washington Commanders. We're going to have to get used to saying that. I finally got used to saying Washington football team, and now I got to say Washington Commanders. So I think Thursday night at home is a bigger advantage than what people give it credit for because it's a short week, and the other team's got to travel on a short week. And Washington, on paper, seems like they're a good team. They bring in Carson Wentz. They have Terry McLaurin. They draft Jahan Dotson. They seem like they should be a pretty good football team. I haven't seen it yet, though. It's one of those things where they should be a good team, but they're just not really there. So I think that the Bears can defend their home field on Thursday Night Football against Washington. And in the first 6 games, I have the Bears going 3-3. And then things get a little bit muddy. then they gotta go to New England, up in New England on Monday Night Football. Don't love that. Do I think the Patriots are world beaters? No. I think it should be an interesting matchup between Mac Jones and Justin Fields. But I think the Patriots can probably scratch out a win at home against the Bears. Same with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think they're great. I think they probably took a step back this year. I think they're good enough to win at home against the Chicago Bears. So I think they start 3-3, then I have them going 3-5. But you know what? There is some sunlight at the end of this tunnel here, because you got Week 9 against Miami at home. And I know a lot of people are up on Miami. They're excited about Miami. They got Tyreek Hill. They got Mike Gesicki at tight end. They add to Jalen Waddle that's already there. They got a new coach that everyone finds quirky and fun, and I do as well. But Miami's another one of those teams, much like Washington, where it's just like, don't tell me, show me. Are we sure that Tua's going to take the next step? Are we sure he's going to be able to utilize all these weapons he has here? So I'm not gonna believe it until I see it that Miami is all of a sudden a big time contender. So I think that the Bears can actually beat the Dolphins at home. And then I think that they can beat the Lions at home. So what that means is the Bears are 5-5 going against 2 really bad teams. The Falcons are in a complete rebuild. Marcus Mariota is their starter. They got some good weapons with Kyle Pitts, and they got a couple high draft picks, but I think that they can certainly go into Atlanta and beat the Falcons. And then the Jets, although they also had a very good draft, are about a year away. And then Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, another one of those second-year quarterback head-to-head competitions there. I maybe call me overly optimistic, which usually people don't call me overly optimistic on the Barroom. So normally I'm the curmudgeon when it comes to this stuff. But I have the Bears at 7-5 going into Week 13. I know that sounds crazy, but I just think that if things break the right way, they can be 7-5. I think they get swept by the Packers. They lose Week 13, which makes them 7-6. A really weird time for a bye, really late bye. Week 14 is the bye week, where if you're a playoff team, that's great. You're getting some late rest as you're getting ready for a playoff push. I don't think the Bears are going to be in a playoff push, although I do have them, 7-6 up to that point. And then Week 15, I think Philadelphia is going to be a good team. I don't really need to elaborate too much on the Christmas Eve game against Buffalo. Could they have given us a worse Christmas present than to put Buffalo as the Christmas Eve game? So at that point, I have them at 7-6, 7-7, 7-8, and I think they're going to split those games in Week 17 and Week 18 with the Lions and the Vikings. I think that so honestly, that's a lot of talking to say that I think the Bears are going to top out around 8-9 this year. Is that overly optimistic? It is not optimistic enough. All that to say that I hate that it's going to be. I hate that I predicted 8-9, because if you look at this schedule and you're confident in your football team, if you think the Bears are a real good football team, this is a real juicy schedule to look at. You see a lot of wins on this schedule if you feel like your team is formidable. Now, listen, if you listen to any of these shows in the past couple years, I said that I thought the Bears should have tried to rebuild last year, get rid of Pace and Nagy last year, and get that rebuild started a year early, so the new GM and the new head coach could have a little more control about how this is going to get rebuilt. But that's neither here nor there. We can't keep crying about what happened last year, 2 years ago, although it might slip in every once in a while. But I have this team at 8-9, which if you say your team's in a complete rebuild, but you're able to go 8-9, that ain't too bad. And then you also have a couple of lottery tickets that you can maybe cash in on. Maybe one of these receivers actually turns into something that they signed. The Dante Pettis, the Tajay Sharp. Maybe Jones Jr. just sets the league on fire as a rookie. Darnell Mooney takes the next step. Maybe Cole Kmet becomes Justin Fields' number 1 target this year. I mean, I'm just throwing out things that might happen, might not happen on the more unlikely side, but they could. And so if things break the right way, maybe you're 8-9, 9-8. But I'm just a little upset that the Bears aren't in a better position to take advantage of this schedule. But I do have them at 8 and 9. This seems like a pretty good time to bring in the rest of the guys over at the Barroom. I'm going to bring in Aldo Gandia. He was the guy who put up that graphic that everyone seems to love, and I love it myself. I love it. I love the spaceship graphic. I love the home and away graphic. I absolutely adore what you were able to do there, Aldo, and I think you're buttering me up with that Buffone 55 hoodie you got on as well. So I appreciate it.
Well,
yeah, I appreciate it.
I came down here to the basement. It was like 5 below. Now that we put the air conditioner on, it's gotten so cold here. And so I reached for a hoodie and hey, Buffone 55 right here.
They'll keep you warm, and it's great. It's great marketing. So, Aldo, normally you're the overly optimistic one whenever we talk about this stuff. I have them at 8 and 9. Are you feeling better or not as good? Positive, negative? Where do you see? And once again, way too early to have a real strong opinion on this stuff. But where do you see this shaking out?
Well, you're absolutely right. It is way too early to have a strong opinion on it. But before I give you my opinion on it, I want to say thank you for coming back for season number 6 of Buffone 55 and Bear Football and everything else that you do here at the Barroom Network. While you've been away enjoying your off season, I have had so many questions. Where's John? Is John coming back? What's going on with John? I miss John and so forth. And you saw some of the comments in the chat area. So I am so happy to announce that you're back for season number 6, and we're going to have a blast this year. I don't care what the record is, whether you're right, I'm right, or whoever's right. We're going to have fun this year because this is a new era in Chicago Bears football, and there's hope for the future. It may not be the near future, but certainly there is a reason for hope. All right, here's some thoughts that I want to share with you regarding the schedule. First of all, I do think that we could steal that week 1 game because of the quarterback the 49ers are going to put in the starting lineup. So that's a potential steal at home. And then things get a little bit tricky. The Sunday night football game doesn't look good. The Texans, we could be 2-1 after week 3, but this is where I start to get a little leery with the schedule. Week 4, week 5, week 7, and week 8, 4 road games, and the only home game in between there is one on Thursday night. So when they're done at Minnesota, they travel home for a very short week, and they've got to get ready for that Washington Commanders game. And then they go out on the road to play the New England Patriots, who are always tough no matter who's at quarterback, and then the Dallas Cowboys, and then their first home game back is against a Miami Dolphins team that has really stacked up their lineup to really aid Tua become the franchise quarterback they thought he was when they drafted him. So that's what concerns me first and foremost, is that by the time we get to the middle of the season, we could see maybe 2 out of 3 victories to start things off with, but then get really iffy there. I think we can beat the Giants, but it just scares me now that, we've got all of these road games and then the 2 home games that follow or the one in the middle, the Commanders, and the one that brings us back home, the Dolphins, I think are going to be tough games. Detroit, sorry, Don Burr, if you're out in the chat room, the Bears are definitely going to beat Detroit. But what do you think about my concerns there with the first half of the schedule?
Oh, I think they're legitimate, and I think that you're right that being on the road and then your first home game back is on a Thursday night. But at the same time, I think this season is going to be very much a season of runs. And when I say that, I mean I think there's going to be losses and wins stacked together in 2s and 3s, because I think that, in my opinion, they could lose the first 2 games and then potentially win the next 2 or 3. And then they could potentially lose. Maybe they do lose that Thursday night game, and then they lose to New England and the Cowboys, and maybe the Dolphins. But I think there's a real opportunity in week 10, 11, and 12 to go on a 3-game winning streak between the Lions, the Falcons, and the Jets. I think that you can really bolster your season there with a 3-game winning streak. And if you make a little bit of hay in the first or maybe the second quarter of the season, if you're able to beat the Giants and maybe you go on the road and you beat the Vikings and you hold ground against Washington at home, then all of a sudden you put together 2 3-game winning streaks before week 12. And that at least keeps you in that term that I absolutely hate, in the hunt. But there's the difference between being in the hunt last year and being in the hunt this year. I think context is going to be key, because in the hunt last year was kind of a joke, because you knew that the current regime was going all in and they were trying to win. They were on their last legs and they were trying to make one last ditch effort to have a competitive football team. In the hunt this year means maybe you're overperforming on a team that's in a rebuild mode that traded Khalil Mack, that is obviously revamping the wide receiving core a little bit, is going to have a different looking defense, a new head coach, a new GM. So I think that in the hunt last year was just irritating. I hated that term because this team was going nowhere fast with the current GM and the head coach. In the hunt this year means, okay, they're showing a little bit of spark. And I can definitely see a win in 3, 4, and potentially 5. That's the Texans, the Giants, and the Vikings. And then I did predict that they were going to win against Washington on Thursday Night Football. So listen, I'm not normally the sunshine and rainbows the Bears are going to come out. That's not. Maybe I've been gone too long. Maybe throughout this hibernation I've somehow become more positive. And week 2 that's going to come crashing back down, or it's like this team's garbage. They're going to lose every game. So we'll see. But I just think that if you look at the schedule, and that's why, like I said earlier, I'm a little irritated, because you look at that schedule and like, damn, if the Bears were a little bit better, they could seriously make some hay with that schedule. Now, if they were better, maybe they wouldn't have the schedule they have right now. But that's neither here nor there. I think that I'm not going to say that I don't think they're a playoff team by any stretch, but we have some people in here thinking that they could be in the playoff hunt. Do you see any avenue here where the Bears are, week 17 and they need to beat the Lions and the Vikings to get into the playoffs? Do you see any scenario there? Because in my scenario, if they would win those last 2 games, they would finish 9-8 rather than 8-9. Let's not forget we have that bonus playoff spot now for the last 2 years that the Bears took advantage of that first year, which probably saved Matt Nagy's job, but that's neither here nor there. Again, not here to talk about the past, but I think that, is there a scenario there where if they, and maybe against Detroit and the Vikings, where you say they win this, they got a chance?
I'm wavering. I'm vacillating here. Could this be a playoff team? Is this, a team that we should really expect to be disappointed? That way, if we're not, we're pleasantly surprised. But I'm listening to or reading some of these comments, and like Sophisticated Thought says, the only quarterbacks that are dangerous on this list are Rodgers, Allen, and Dak. Ryan says only Allen and Rodgers are the scary quarterbacks on this schedule, and that gives me hope. And also makes me perhaps understand why the Chicago Bears elected to go with the defensive backs in round 2 with their first 2 picks to solidify this defense, because, they can take advantage of teams with weak quarterbacks, Jared Goff, and stack up turnovers against these types of quarterbacks. So maybe the thing is there's still a lack of depth on the offensive line. We don't know who the left tackle is. We don't know who the right guard is. Despite the signing of 2 wide receivers last night, Dante Pettis and Tajay Sharp, I believe is the pronunciation of his first name. That's not going to scare anybody. Do you remember? We've talked about this before, John. Remember that one season where the Bears were signing guys in the middle of the season?
2017, yeah. I think they traded for that guy from San Diego, Dontrell Inman. They had Marcus Wheaton, Kendall Wright. I can't believe I remember these guys' names. But yeah, it was just like this. It was the island of misfit wide receivers, and you're kind of seeing the same thing this year with the signing of David Moore and Tajay Sharp and who the hell Dante Pettis. And so, listen, this is kind of what Poles said he was going to do. He was going to find guys who were hungry on prove-it contracts. So you're holding a bunch of lottery tickets there, because you got guys that, and even St. Brown for the most part, and even Pringle to an extent, where if you don't produce for this team, you're probably not going to get a significant contract after this, especially with Tajay Sharp and Dante Pettis, who kind of flamed out. Now Dante Pettis had an all right rookie season. He was a second-round pick. He was, I think, Greg Gabriel had him as high as his number 4 receiver in the entire draft that year. Yeah. And so, there was potential there. So sometimes if you can jumpstart that and all of a sudden something clicks, then you got a great value with a guy that you're just on a short term or a low paying deal. But as we've seen, sometimes none of them work out. So there's a reason why some of them are only going to take 1-year contracts. Maybe Tajay Sharp doesn't even make the squad. Maybe Dante Pettis gets cut. Maybe Pringle, I mean, he hasn't had a great offseason already. Maybe something doesn't work out there. St. Brown maybe doesn't find there's always all of these guys have the potential and they have the talent, but haven't really shown it much in the NFL to this point. But listen, a lot of this depends on the progress of Justin Fields too. Yep. If Justin Fields takes a big step, and I know that he needs, weapons to help him progress, but a lot of it is on his personal progression as well. They're changing his mechanics. He's, dropping back on a different foot now or whatever they're doing. If they find a system with Luke Getsy that really utilizes what he does best. I think I saw a stat that Justin Fields was 11 of 13 on passes where he was rolling out last year. Yeah. And the first thing that came to mind is, why the hell did he only throw it 13 times when he was rolling out? This is working. Let's never do it. So that kind of shows you that they did not utilize Justin Fields in the right way last year. He does really well when he rolls out of the pocket. He can be mobile. Why do you not use a mobile? Why do you draft a mobile quarterback if you're not going to let him be mobile? And so I think that if he is able to take the next step in his progression, then all of a sudden you look at some of these matchups and you say the Bears have the advantage at quarterback. And that's what ultimately that's what you're hoping for. And you're hoping that you get another strong year out of David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. I think they have a great 1-2 punch in the backfield, a very underrated backfield. I loved the backfield last year with Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery showing that they could both be workhorses if they needed to be. And they're going to, I thought that they should maybe take the Cleveland Browns approach where they have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt back there and just pound guys in the face, just beat these teams up. Now you need an offensive line for that, but I think that if they are able to do that, then they can open up a lot of space for burners like St. Brown and Mooney. If you're able to draw people in because you're gonna pound the rock, then you can go up top. But there's a lot of things that we're looking at this, and listen, it's May. So there's a lot of things that have to shake out to that point. And you're hoping that Fields takes the next step. You're hoping that this MASH offensive line kind of figures it out. You hope that Luke Getsy has a good offensive system. You hope that the transition over to Eberflus's defense goes smooth with some of the current guys. You hope that those young guys in the secondary are able to hold it down very early in the season. There's a lot of hope, and I think that's probably going to be the common theme here is you're hoping that a lot of things happen because let's face it, there aren't a lot of definites with this team right now, and sometimes that's good because there were a lot of definites last year that were bad. There was some that was like this. We definitely have the wrong coach. We definitely don't have the right personnel to win. We definitely don't have the right offensive scheme. I'd rather have a bunch of hopes than a lot of bad definites, and hopefully those hopes turn into good definites. And there's our buddy Don Burr. He's here.
And he's got his usual predictions.
2-15. Well, they're gonna beat the Lions twice at least.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of hope. I guess hope's the right word. I guess it's just unknown. Yeah, is it hope? Like, are you positive? Do you feel good about a lot of the unknowns with this team?
Yeah, I feel really good about a lot of the unknowns. I think, one of the things that I'm most impressed about is that the Bears hierarchy, starting with their general manager, made it a point to hire really good teachers. And when I heard these press conferences over the past weekend of the special teams coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator. These guys really made a lot of sense and talked about utilizing players' strengths to come up with game plans and develop an offense and defense. Ooh, what a novel idea, man. Also talked about the process of learning and figuring out ways that particular player that they're talking one-on-one to, how does he learn best, and trying to reach that player and to continually communicate things over and over and over again. I've been in the communications game for decades, and that's the secret to effective communications. John, you know it too. You've been in this game for a long time. What are the 3 rules of communicating? Tell them what you want them to do, tell them again, and then tell them another time. That's the way, repetition. And so these coaches are all saying the right things. Now, we of course have to see the game planning and make sure, we all had high hopes for Matt Nagy's game planning after he did the razzle dazzle plays early in the season. But what I'm hoping is that, particularly on the offense, is that Luke Getsy is going to be committed to the run, because we definitely have strength and depth there, and that always helps out an offensive line, that they're moving forward and punishing the defense, and that they strike deep and long, something that Justin Fields is also very good at, and they've got plenty of speed. And I know a lot of people were upset with Velus Jones. Who is this guy? I saw him; he was 20th on the board for the subscription that I have of wide receivers, and the fact of the matter is that when you look at this tape, this guy's an explosive player. He does things after the catch. Get the ball into his hands. He makes people miss. He's the type of player that can help out a young quarterback. And of course, we already know the connection that Fields has with Darnell Mooney, and it probably is going to be even stronger because those guys have been working together during the offseason. So things like that give me a lot of hope. But I'm trying to temper my expectations, only because I do believe that while other teams in the division may not have improved dramatically, I do think even the Lions, I think, and we'll go do a game-by-game breakdown of all the opponents coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Danny Shimon is getting his microphone ready. He was taking care of some personal business. So he'll be with us shortly. So we'll do a breakdown real quickly of all the games, but even the Lions have improved. I know the Packers have lost Devontae Adams, but they've done things on the defensive side of the football that should improve their team overall. They may not be the high-scoring team that we have encountered in the past, but their defense should be improved. And then the Vikings are the Vikings. The Vikings can surprise, although I think we've won 5 of the last 6 against the Vikings. I'd love to see that streak going, and the streak that we currently have against the Lions. We'll see, man. If we could pick up 5 victories out of the NFC North, that would be huge starting point for me, man. And maybe steal that game against the 49ers in week 1. Man, I'd be a happy soldier.
Look, there's a lot of, even if you don't think the Bears are going to be good this year, there's a lot of awesome storylines, and I buy into that just as much as if I don't think the Bears are going to be good, I at least want to see good drama. I want to see good storylines play out, and so having Trey Lance and Justin Fields on the field week 1 at Soldier Field, I think is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Having him play a lot of the guys that he came out in the draft with. I mean, I assume the Texans are still going to be with Davis Mills. I think, and then you have Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, all these guys who were, taken in the same draft. A couple, 2 of them taken before Justin Fields. So I think that you look at some of the drama that you can have on here. Of course, how are the Packers going to look? If the Bears steal one from the Packers, maybe it doesn't change the Bears season, but it could potentially torpedo the Packers season. Ooh, and that's, at that point, that might be just as good because of where the Bears might be. How are the Lions going to be in the second year of that new regime? Are they going to be biting kneecaps like they promised they're going to be doing? And then you look at the Vikings, where it sounded like they really wanted Ryan Poles, and Ryan Poles chose the Bears. And so you got some of the drama there between, did the Vikings make the right decision or did the Bears make the right decision? So there's plenty of things to look into whenever you look at this season. And a point that you made about Jones Jr., about whenever they drafted him, a lot of the hate that was coming out on him was that he was turning 25 after the draft. And I get it. That's an older rookie. I don't listen, there's an argument to be made against it, but I think the wrong argument is being made, because if this is a guy that you think is going to help your team quickly, he is explosive after the catch, and he can be a great returner, and maybe he can be like a mini Deebo Samuel for your team or whatever, then yeah, I feel fine. I would rather you take a 24 going to be 25-year-old prospect who you think you really like, as opposed to a 23-year-old that you're not sure about. If they feel that strongly about him, then go for it. Now, if you want to make the argument that you're a little scared because he may have only been productive in his last year of college when he was hands down more mature than the guys that he was playing against, or maybe he only had a more productive year whenever he was in his 4th or 5th year of college, go ahead and make that argument. There's that I think that's valid. But to just rag on it because of the age, I think is a little misguided, because I think if you really like the guy, then you go and get him, and maybe he can be a shot in the arm to an offense that's going to need a shot in the arm. I mean, Darnell Mooney is an electrifying player, but they're lacking playmakers right now. They have solid players in Montgomery and Herbert, and you're hoping Cole Kmet can do something in his 3rd year, but they need guys who are explosive with the football. And if you feel like that's going to be the guy, then go ahead. So what? I mean, he's going to maybe have to get his new maybe you get him in his prime, and then you don't have to re-extend him then, because you get if you get him for 4 years, and then he's going to be 30, and then you're like, okay, well, we got four great years out of him. That's great. And for a 3rd round pick, we can't ask for much more out of that. I mean, unless he's an absolute superstar, then you struck gold in the 3rd round. So I'm not gonna give them as much guff as a lot of other people have about, drafting a senior citizen as a rookie, because if he comes in and plays well, I don't give a crap if you're 25, 35, 105. If you're playing well, then you're playing well, and that's what the Bears need, playmakers right now. So I look at that. One thing though, Aldo, that I think has been, everyone's talking about the offense, everyone's talking about Justin Fields and the receivers. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this defense looks. It's going to be a new look defense, going to be a lot of new personnel. Are we sure? I mean, we're hoping that the secondary plays well with these young guys that they drafted, but there's going to be the linebacking core is going to look very different. The defensive line is going to look different. In fact, they changed it. They're going to 4-3 now. So, and I know that teams don't stay in their base defense all the time. I think the nickel is probably a lot more common now in today's NFL, but just in their base defense, it's going to look different. You look at the linebackers they brought in. Is Morrow going to be your starting linebacker, and Matthew Adams? Are those guys? I know that they're Eberflus guys, and they probably know the system well, but how are they going to transition? And I think the defense there is going to be a very interesting storyline throughout this year, because Eberflus is a defensive coach, and he's bringing a very strong system, very strong work ethic, a very strong attitude there. So you're hoping that it catches fire quickly, but it might take this team 4 or 5 weeks to really gel, especially some of the guys who were used to playing in the old defense. So we'll see. I'm interested to see how the defense looks as much as I am the offense.
Danny Shimon is ready to join us. I just want to make a quick point before he jumps in. One of the really cool things about all these young players that we've picked up is that they all talk like veterans. They have all of them have leadership capabilities. Many of them were captains on their football team. These are the kinds of guys who you don't worry about so much during week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, where 4 out of the 5 games are on the road, because these guys are Velus Jones shows up in a suit to rookie mini camp and has his own whiteboard. And Jaquan Brisker is talking about how he wants to be a leader on this team, that he knows he can't walk in and be a leader right away, that he has to learn his job, but he wants to become a leader of this team. There are so many examples of the culture changing with the Chicago Bears. And so some of these tough parts of the schedule aren't as scary as they might have been before, where we had so many questions. All right, let's bring him in here now. Danny Shimon, how are you, brother?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Danny, good to see you, buddy. We're here to break down the schedule because it's never
what's the breakdown?
too
17-0, baby. What's the breakdown?
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us. We're going to sign off. Danny, appreciate you jumping on. No, listen.
You told me you were doing family business, not out drinking.
Well,
and drinking kind of coincide.
Oh, I see.
You're right. You're right. I gave a kind of a 17,000 feet view of the schedule. I said that the Bears could potentially go 8-9 the way I look at it. And it's, for me, that's unfortunate because I look at the schedule and it's a juicy schedule if you have a good football team. But I don't know how good. There's just too many unknowns about the Bears for me to say they're going to be 10-7 and get into the wild card round, or they're going to compete for the division or anything of that nature. So I do want to kind of plug your knowledge a little bit, because you understand some of these rookies, you understand some of the key additions that not just the Bears have, but some of these teams in general have. So Aldo, let's go ahead and just start at week 1, because I think this is a very interesting matchup. A lot of people think they could steal this game against the San Francisco 49ers at home. Trey Lance, Justin Fields, showdown of the draft class. You see some of these key additions and key losses for the 49ers. Danny, how do you see this 49ers team shaking out, especially week 1, because they kind of have a little bit of an unknown at quarterback as well?
Yeah, that's the thing. When I saw the schedule come out on 49ers, man, you don't want one of the the favorites, the heavy favorites in the NFC to be your week 1 opponent, especially if you're new coaching staff, Matt Eberflus and all those guys. So, but we see crazy things happen right on week 1. That's when teams really are just kind of coming out of training camps. Some teams rest their starters for all 3 weeks of training camp and in the preseason, I should say. So crazy things happen, right? And then touch on a great point there, John. Is 49ers are probably going to be breaking in a rookie quarterback, or second-year quarterback, but more like a rookie who's barely. So Trey Lance on the road, and then obviously I think the Bears are going to come up hyped up, pumped up to go ahead and try and make a an early statement here versus the 49ers. So this could be going either way. Now, initial reaction when the schedule first comes out, I just kind of go through real quick. I just put on gut feelings, loss, win, loss, win. Now I did mark this as a loss just because I feel like the 49ers obviously are the better team here. But I just think, week 1, you never know what happens. Crazy stuff happens. And, like the Bills lost to, I forgot who it was, the Jets or something like that. Some crazy upsets. Every week 1 or every NFL season, you see some crazy upsets where teams, heavy favorites, just end up losing. So, I'm not saying they're going to lose for sure. But like I said, there are some things in the Bears' favor. A new coaching staff, defense are going to be probably full of young guys, hungry. Of course, that also means they could be making mistakes as well. But if you flip it over to the 49ers side, we talked about Trey Lance making his first start on the road, most likely, or will be on the road. But, we'll see how that goes. But, initially I say loss. I don't want to see 49ers and Packers, especially at the road, at Lambeau Field, week 2, first two weeks of the season. But, that's how the cookie crumble, as they say. So,
yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to ask Danny about these 2 rookies at the top of the list of the additions. Drake Jackson, frankly, I didn't do much study on him. Frankly, I don't think I did any study on Tyrion Davis-Price, who I heard is an outstanding running back. But what kind of an impact do you think these 2 young players can make on this 49ers team, particularly because they were a really good running team last year, but they lost Laken Tomlinson, who was one of these outside zone offensive linemen that I was hoping the Bears would take a look at.
Yeah, believe it or not, Tomlinson is a guy that's been up and down in his career. A first-round pick out of Duke. I really don't think he's all that great. I know he had a couple of solid seasons with the 49ers, but I think in that kind of scheme, athletic linemen do look better. But just touching on your initial question with Drake Jackson, he's a tweener kind of guy, an edge guy that at USC was a highly recruited edge rusher. Came in, had a solid, freshman and sophomore campaign, was more of a hand in the ground defensive end. Then they kind of made him lose weight, stood him up in a 2-point stance, made him rush as an outside linebacker, was at least effective in terms of at the line of scrimmage. And then now this past season put on some weight, just trying to get back to being a hand in the ground defensive end. So, he's a guy that's a rotational guy, right? They got, obviously Bosa and the kid Armstead across from him. So, he's going to be a guy that's going to be kind of rotated in there. Tyron Davis-Price, I'm telling you, he's a guy that really kind of went under the radar in terms of running backs in this class. But again, these guys, meaning Shanahan's, they find running backs in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, because of this zone scheme. And the thing you want to look about this kid is his cutback ability, right? This is a kid that obviously with those zone schemes, they stretch it out, that outside zone. And you want a guy who's got a good feel for the run game and good feel for the cutback lanes with good vision. And this is what, Davis Price will do. He does a good job of being able to just kind of plant one cut, head up the field, find that second lane. So, they did lose Raheem Mostert. He ended up leaving the 49ers. I think he's with Miami now.
Yeah.
So that's a guy that, but of course they had the 6th round pick from last year, Elijah Mitchell, right? From the kid from Louisiana that we saw down at the Senior Bowl, had a terrific rookie campaign, so he's going to be the workhorse for them there. So he's going to be a handful, before you even look at Tyron Davis Price, you got to worry about Elijah Mitchell and those guys. So a tough matchup initially. Like I said, when I first saw it come out, I'm like, all right, this is going to be one of the heavy favorites in the NFC. It's probably going to be a loss, but again, like I mentioned earlier, it's week one. Crazy stuff has happened. So I guess I hate to say that the Bears' only chance is it's week one and crazy stuff happens, but that's I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take craziness is on our side. Let's transition over to week 2 because we got 17 weeks to go through here. Danny, I'm not sure we need a whole lot of analyzing for this one, but like I've said before, I don't think the Packers are going to be Super Bowl contenders this year, but I still think they have enough to beat the Chicago Bears. And you look at some of their additions, obviously a big key loss with Devontae Adams. They do lose Zadarius Smith as well. I still think they have a pretty solid defense. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Like I said, probably don't have to go too deep in the weeds with this one, but what do you think?
Yeah, obviously, I think like you touched on it there, John. No, I don't think they're going to be Super Bowl favorites, but I think they're obviously still the king of this division. So I think if you win one game against the Packers this year, I think that would be a huge a tip of the cap to Matt Eberflus and his team. But yeah, this is going to be at Lambeau Field, their home opener, I believe, if I saw the schedule correctly. So I mean, they're going to be pumped up and hyped up. And they lost some key guys and with Zadarius Smith and Devontae Adams. But yeah, and you're not going to replace Devontae Adams in the draft. But I like what they did in terms of their overall draft class. And I think Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt are going to be probably instant impact starters on this team on defense. So they improved their defense, tremendously. Christian Watson, he's, like I said on draft day, he's more of a replacement for Marquez Valdes-Scantling than he is for Devontae Adams because he gives you that 4.3 speed, a 6'4" frame. The guy gets down the field, it can definitely stretch the defense. So he's going to be a weapon, but I don't think he's going to be. He's not going to be Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy initially right away. So still, like I said, may not be a heavy Super Bowl favorite, but definitely the cream of the crop in terms of the division. So this is for me definitely a loss.
Well, let's move on to a more winnable game. That's at week 3. That's right. Whenever they take on the Houston Texans at home. Obviously, they lose Deshaun Watson, but he didn't play last year anyway. So it's not. I don't know how much of a loss from last year that is, but it looks like they're probably going to go into the season with Davis Mills. And I think that's a very interesting matchup because I think this is probably a prove-it year for Davis Mills, even though maybe their weapons aren't the greatest in Houston. But what do you – I mean, you scouted all these guys whenever they were coming out. Davis Mills didn't have a lot of tape to put out there in college, but was a highly recruited guy out of high school, just didn't get a lot of time to put it all out there whenever I believe he was at Stanford. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what are your thoughts on the Davis Mills-Justin Fields matchup here?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Davis Mills, I mean, he really came on towards the end of the year. And one of the reasons why was his quarterback coach last year was Pep Hamilton. And that guy who's worked with, the guys like Andrew Luck and some of the other quarterbacks. And he's done a great job in terms of getting these quarterbacks ready and prepared. Justin Herbert, he was with San Diego, the previous season as well. So he does a great job of getting these quarterbacks right. And you saw Davis Mills struggle as a rookie coming out, but then you just saw him get better and better and better. Towards the end of the season, he was playing, solid football there for him. So I think now with Pep Hamilton being the offensive coordinator, I think that's only going to continue his progression, same offense, same scheme, so on and so forth. So I look for Davis Mills to take that jump. And I think he's going to be a solid quarterback for this franchise. In terms of the overall, the schedule, this is where for me, we go. So obviously I got him down 0-2 now, and now we start with the 3 teams that have all new head coaching staffs, right? We got the Texans with Lovie Smith coming in there with new staff. We got the Giants and their new staff and the Vikings and new staff. This is where I can see the Bears going on a bit of a winning streak here. As a matter of fact, I got them winning these next 3 games and going 3-2. So the Texans starts off with Houston here at home, then going to the Giants. The Giants to me aren't anything to write home about. I do like their first 2 picks in terms of their draft. So they made some improvements there as well. But there's questions at quarterback with that kid there. So we'll get to the Giants later. But yeah, in terms of the Texans here, I think this is the Bears' first win of the season here, beating Houston and our old coach Lovie Smith at Soldier Field.
Yeah, I can't believe I missed when I was talking about all the great storylines in this year. I passed over Lovie Smith coaching the Houston Texans. I don't know how I looked past it. I was talking about all the great things that are going on, the storylines that could make things fun. Completely forgot about Lovie Smith coming back to Chicago.
You're not alone. I think all of Houston forgot Lovie Smith as head coach. As well.
I can't believe I overlooked that. I'm sorry, Lovie. I know you listen to the show, but let's go to week 4. You were talking about the Giants. I think that's a very winnable game. They also have a new head coach. They have a quarterback today. It's probably on his last chance to make it work there. I also think they had a pretty good draft, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into a great year the very next year. What's your outlook on this one, Danny?
Yeah, right there. Daniel Jones, their quarterback, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So obviously he's going into that make it break it season. This is going to be his, it's going to be a lot of pressure on him. Obviously, depending on what they do the first 3 weeks, again, we mentioned a new coaching staff, a new regime. So there's a little bit of an adjustment period there as well. So I think, this is like the second game in which they can go ahead and now. And again, you're going to go travel. This is going to be your second road game. Going to be at New York, but I think it's another winnable game. Giants have a formidable defense last year. They made a switch, and now they brought in the old Ravens defensive coordinator Rink Martindale. So he brings more of that aggressive, all-out blitz. So this is going to be a game in which the offensive line that Justin Fields has in front of him is going to be tested, but also gives you opportunities here because you see a lot of zero blitzes, you see a lot of all man out, that they're coming after the quarterback. So this is going to have to be sharp and beyond his game, and I hope the coaching staff does not give him the Cleveland Browns play script from last season where he was getting demolished all over the place. So just keep an eye out here in terms of how aggressive they'll be on defense in terms of the Giants, but. You definitely can beat these guys, and you can beat them deep. And especially, you add some weapons now with Darnell Mooney in terms of, Bayless Jones, Dante Pettis. I know he hasn't had a great career, but the kid is a 2nd-round pick come out of Washington, known for a pretty damn good punt returner. His has been, just consistency and staying healthy. And I think last year he was with the Giants last year. So I think he played like 2 games and then injured his shoulder. So, bring some more speed element on defense, maybe hit him with the screen game here and there. You can definitely beat this defense. But again, a team in transition. I love Kayvon Thibodeau. I think he's the early favorite for defensive rookie of the year, in my opinion. I love that kid's ability off the edge. So, but definitely I think I have the Bears winning here. And I now have them at 2-2.
Well, let's move on to another potential win on the schedule. Another team with a new coach and a new GM and a divisional rival, same Kirk Cousins there at quarterback, however, still some pretty good weapons on that Vikings offense. When you look at this, Danny, is this a team what do you expect to be different about them? I know that they got a new defensive or a new offensive minded head coach, but should we be expecting anything different from the Vikings this year?
No, I mean, because Kevin has the experience with Kirk Cousins back in Washington when Cousins with Washington back then. O'Connell was his quarterback coach. So, they have the familiarity there. They're going to be running a similar offense in terms of what they do with the Rams, and it all starts with the whole Shanahan, wide zone scheme. And this is what they do here in Minnesota. So, obviously their offense is going to be the key to them, in terms of, kind of sustaining or maintaining those guys, keeping them off the scoreboard with those receivers, and obviously Dalvin Cook in the backfield. So that's going to be a key test for the Bears defense there. Obviously now they have a new coaching staff with their defensive coordinator is going to be the former Bears secondary coach at Donatel. So they're going to be going to more of that Vic Fangio 3-4. So that's going to be a new, transition for them as well. So that's why I got this down as a possible victory. It just seems like the Bears always seem to have the Vikings number in recent years. So they rarely ever get swept by Minnesota. They always end up winning one or possibly both games. So I just think it's another prime time where they can go in there and just kind of steal a victory here from Minnesota. But again, a team in transition with new coaching staff. I think offensively they should be very good. Minnesota defensively is where I think the Bears can't take advantage of them.
Well, keeping up with that series of change, looking at their next opponent, I think this is a game that they can win. It's at home on a Thursday night against Washington. They have a brand new quarterback in Carson Wentz. They seem to have a revolving door at that position. I think that until Washington can prove that they're as good as they kind of look on paper, or they look like they should be a pretty decent ball club, I'm not going to believe it. And I love Ron Rivera. I just don't love this team. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Carson Wentz is like every year he's got a new a new team here. So Carson Wentz obviously moves on to Washington here. It's pretty bad when the Colts gave up all that draft capital, and then after 1 year, it's like, we don't want you, just go away. So that's obviously their biggest question mark is that offense, and then in terms of the quarterback. But they're a well coached team with Ron Rivera. They play a pretty solid defensive base up there as well. So they're going to be a tough team to go ahead and beat. I have them down as a victory. And that's mainly because it's a primetime game Thursday night. I think this is going to be a prime opportunity for the Bears to kind of go after Carson Wentz here. Hopefully accuse them and maybe get a couple turnovers here, get the ball out, and help have the defense help the offense score some points here. And then at this point here, we should know in terms of that Bears offense, how they're going to be, what kind of team they're going to be. So if they stick to what Luke Getsy's talking about in terms of being a run first offense, that they're going to predicate everything off the play action, this isn't a defense that can get aggressive. And this might be a nice opportunity to go ahead and make some big plays downfield. So, but again, you're going to have to protect Justin Fields, and that's we start in the beginning here. My biggest concerns are that offense and defensive line. So there are still some question marks there that the Bears need to answer by the time the season starts, but hopefully they get all those things squared away, and then that way they have a solid foundation to go ahead and build off of there.
Danny,
they're going to need that.
Yeah, they are. Danny, before you arrived, I was talking about this part of the schedule. Week 4 on the road, week 5 on the road, week 6 at home, but a short turnaround Thursday night football, and then 7 and 8 on the road. I'm a little concerned about this Washington football team just because of the short turnaround. And as Tony the Pod Boss said in the chat, that this team was better than they showed last season because they had so many injured defensive starters and they had the clipboard quarterback going. We might be underestimating what the Commanders can do this season. Your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I mean, defensively, they're a solid unit. Like I said earlier, they're well coached. Ron Rivera is one heck of a head football coach, and I think it all depends. Their all success is going to be predicated on what Carson Wentz does. If Carson Wentz is playing 2017 Carson Wentz, which, guys, it's been 5 years, we haven't seen that guy since then. So then that's going to be a tough team to beat. But if he's the Carson Wentz that we saw last couple of seasons with the Eagles, and then also last year with the Colts, where he's kind of hot and cold, up and down. I have a lot of confidence. And again, I haven't seen him play on the field. I haven't seen him do anything in terms of in person, but I just have a lot of confidence in Matt Eberflus and his defensive staff in terms of, being able to coach these guys up. I think they're going to get these guys to play at 100 miles an hour. Corny Corman, who was our guest last week on Draft on Tap, had a great, report on Twitter saying that this is the most aggressive, fast-paced, rookie minicamp that she had seen, and she's covered the NFL a long time. So, it just kind of tells you how this staff now is already kind of implementing, what they want to do. They're talking about running to the football, gang tackling, punching the ball out. Tillman was there, first day of minicamp to talk to these rookies. That's not a coincidence, because that's what they want to do. They want these guys to go ahead and start being able to utilize that peanut punch and get those ball, that ball out of there and get those turnovers. So I think I just have this confidence that this team is going to be well coached, at least defensively. Offensively, I still have a lot of question marks, but we'll see how that goes.
Very good.
And they're gonna need some of that. Like we're talking about that strong base, maybe building up a 3-3 record, because if you go into the next week, it ain't great. They got to go up to New England on Monday Night Football, which I always say I don't love when the Bears are in prime time. I'm just probably going to harp on that the entire year. But anyway, another interesting storyline here: Mac Jones and Justin Fields going at it. How do you see this shaking out, Danny? Because I just think that this is going to be one of those games where it seems like it's winnable, but then something just falls apart.
Yeah, I look at my schedule here, and I have these kind of like L's and doubles. I've got like streaks. I've got like 2-game losing streak, 4-game winning streak, 3-game losing streak. It's like it just doesn't kind of, there's up and down here all over the place. But I mean, this is going to be a tough stretch. These next 3 games for me are going to be tough in terms of the Bears, because you got at the Patriots on Monday night, which we all know how that goes usually, at the Cowboys. A lot of people are down on the Cowboys, but I mean, they are still a pretty good offensive unit. They have Dan Quinn went back there for defense, and I think those guys are going to be flying in terms of making turnovers and helping that offense score some points there as well. So at Patriots, at Cowboys, and Dolphins here, I think there's going to be three tough games here as well. So I have this down as a loss. You talked about the Mac Jones versus Justin Fields thing. I don't get into the whole quarterback battle because obviously it's the Bears versus the Patriots. I just think my only concern here with the Patriots, to be honest with you guys, is who's going to be calling the offensive play for Mac Jones. I've been hearing Matt Patricia, and if Matt Patricia and his number 2 pencil are calling those plays in the helmet of Mac Jones, I'm liking the Bears' chance a little bit more than I thought. When I first saw this schedule come out. So we'll see how that goes. Again, now we're in week 7. Teams are generally kind of identifying themselves in terms of what they're going to be the rest of the season. So we'll have a pretty good feel here. But yeah, I mean that's the one question I have about the Patriots. And again, no one questions Bill Belichick, right? Bill Belichick can do whatever he wants because he's the greatest coach of all time. But man, if he turns Matt Patricia into an offensive genius, I mean, I just give him his bus right now in Canton. Just let him go there.
Rename the hall after him.
Exactly.
Because if you can turn Matt Patricia into an offensive genius, then that's spinning something into gold. And you kind of talked on this a little bit earlier, but they do, after their road trip to New England, they got to follow that up by going to Dallas the next week. And so, look, once again, Dallas is another one of those teams where I think probably took a step back with some of the losses they had over the offseason, but they probably still have enough to beat the Bears at home, mainly, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and that running game that they have. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. They're still a very potent offense. You got those receivers there. You got that running game. You got Dak Prescott at quarterback. You have a somewhat retooled offensive line there also. Like I said, we're going to know at this point in the season, what kind of team the Bears are. Are they a defensive unit, a team led by their defense? Are they going to be a run-based offense? So I think we'll see here who's going to be kind of stepping up and who's going to be kind of, stepping out, if you will, in terms of, the overall team here. But I get it. Tough game. Jerry's World is always a raucous crowd. They always have that big home field advantage there. And I just think it's going to be, especially for what looks to be a very young team in terms of the Bears, it's going to be a tough environment to probably pull a victory out of.
Yeah, and I kind of sped past the Patriots and Cowboys because I really want to talk about this next game, and it's a home game against a team that I feel is kind of, I don't know what to make of it because they go all in, they get Tyreek Hill, they bring in Cedric Wilson, they're trying to build around Tua. They have Gesicki at tight end. They have a hodgepodge running back room with, I think you alluded to earlier, Mostert, Myles Gaskin. They just signed they just signed somebody. I forget who exactly. Not Cam Akers. I forget who they signed exactly. It was Sony Michel. Yeah. So what do you make of this Miami team? Because they're kind of like the Washington for me, because I'll believe it when I see it. When they show that they can be a good football team, then I'll pick them to beat the Bears. But I don't see it quite yet.
Right, me too, and that's the thing. It's like they made the big splash moves. They made they got the Terron Armstead, the guy I wanted the Bears to go after. They got the big Tyreek Hill trade. You talked about some of these guys, Cedric Wilson, all these players. But again, their two question marks is they have a rookie head coach, right? Mike McDaniel, who was, I believe, I don't even think he had the title of offensive coordinator. He might have had the title of offensive coordinator. He was more so like the run game coordinator for the 49ers. Rookie head coach who, if you ever listen to this guy's press conference, he's hilarious. But and they have a big question mark at quarterback in Tua. They have Tyreek Hill, but can Tua get on the ball downfield? That's going to be the big thing here. Is that's another quarterback that's going to be going into a make it or break season here for him as well. So so I have question marks in terms of what this Dolphins team will look like. Just based off the talent alone, though, I went ahead and gave the Bears the loss here, because I just assumed that they're just because based off their talent, they're going to be a better football team. But definitely that this is not one that I put down in pen. This could be anywhere. Surprise me and go ahead and beat this team for all I know. But definitely a team that you just the big splash moves are great, but there's just way too many question marks at key spots. Head coach, quarterback, for me to tell me that this is a very, very good team.
Yeah, I feel like they can potentially win this game unless, Miami comes out and they're all of a sudden world beaters. Then I'm going to temper my expectations. I'm reserving the right to change my mind as the season
Right.
progresses. But as of right now in May, I think that it's a game they could potentially win. And then things kind of get a little loose. They get a little easier as
Right.
we move into week 10, because that's whenever they have their first divisional game against the Detroit Lions at home. And this starts off kind of a 3-game stretch here where I think the Bears could maybe rip off 3 games in a row. But let's start with the Detroit Lions, who are in the second year of the Dan Campbell experience. I think that Detroit's going to be better.
Yep.
I'm sure that you probably liked their draft.
I love
but
their,
what do you think of them as far as 2022 goes?
Yeah, Dan Campbell and his kneecap biters are going to be coming to Soldier Field here, and I agree that the Lions have gotten better in terms of talent, overall talent on the roster. But again, Jared Goff is their quarterback. This game is going to be week 10. What is that, November, I believe, or is that early December?
Yeah.
So it depends on how the weather. If the weather's a little cold, Jared Goff is going to go into his little shell and he's going to be out of it. But chances are it's going to be mild, not cold, not bitterly cold, but not warm as well. So we'll see how that goes. But the Lions, I don't know if Jameson Williams will be available this game. He's scheduled to come back probably mid to late October is what the initial reports were during the draft process. So that's a big play weapon at a receiver to kind of go with last year's third-round pick, Amon St. Brown, who was a hell of a surprise pick for them. This team has weapons. I mean, this team has got DeAndre Swift in the backfield, Hawkinson at tight end, like I said, but the big question mark is Jared Goff, right? What kind of a quarterback is he going to be? And at this point, I'm expecting that Eberflus and his staff will have the Bears defense clicking all cylinders here, and I think they'll be able to provide some pressure, some coverage, and be able again get some turnovers, because they're going to be relying heavily on rallying to football and punching that ball out and making opportunities for offense. So but the Lions are the Lions, so I do have a victory here for our beloved Bears.
And then things get a little juicier in week 11 against a Atlanta Falcons team that I feel is in a full and utter rebuild.
Right.
They brought in a playmaker in the first round, but Marcus Mariota is going to be probably the week 1 starter in Atlanta. They're probably jockeying for a high pick in next year's draft, where it's a lot more flush with quarterback prospects as opposed to this year. So they got to go to Atlanta, but I don't know if Atlanta is going to have enough to beat the Bears, which is probably the only time I'm going to say that this year. But I don't think the Falcons have enough to beat the Bears. What do you say?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a team that's in looks like full rebuild mode. Obviously with trading Matt Ryan away, most of all the receivers are gone. I mean, they drafted Drake London, but yeah, this is a team that's going to go all young and they might make it competitive, but I do think the Bears come out of Atlanta with a victory. So again, I think at this point of the season, Marcus Mariota may or may not be playing, may not be starting. The thing, besides being ineffective at Tennessee, he was also very injury prone as well. So, and if memory serves me right, their only backup currently on the roster, I could be mistaken, but is the rookie, the kid Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. So if that is the case, and Mariota's not playing, you have a rookie quarterback, even better for the Bears.
Real quick before we move on to week 12, how did you feel about Drake London to Atlanta? As player aside, how do you feel about the fit there? They have Kyle Pitts there, and maybe it's too early to figure that out just because you're not sure who the quarterback is going to be for the majority of his career. But how do you feel about Drake London in Atlanta?
I like the prospect overall. I like Drake London as a receiver. He's a big catch radius guy, a guy that reminds me a lot of Mike Williams from the Chargers, and also the kid from Tampa Bay. Drawing it blank on his name, but number 13 for the Buccaneers right now.
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans. Thank you so much, Mike Evans. So that's my comp for him. Drake London, big kid, 5'6", big time catch radius guy. Has tremendous body contour, can get downfield, is tremendous on those back shoulder throws, can go up and make contested catches in traffic. So I love the prospect. I'm surprised that they didn't go with Garrett Wilson, only because Wilson doesn't give you that size, but he does give you the speed. He does give you he's also pretty, for a guy who's 6 feet tall, Garrett Wilson. He's also a guy who's very physical at the catch point, a guy that can go up and make plays those contested footballs. So that's I thought was going to be their pick. But they end up going with Drake London. Obviously, they got last year's pick, Pitts, the tight end. So now they have a kind of like a twin tower thing going on in the red zone. So if you throw the ball up there, these are both guys that can go up and make contested catches. So I think that's what they're looking at. So if you have a quarterback that's, accuracy has not been his strong suit in his career, Marcus Mariota, you have these big twin tower guys. You can just kind of throw the ball up there with huge catch radiuses, just going up, making plays over defenders. I think that's what they're thinking. That's why they probably leaned with Drake London over a guy like Garrett Wilson.
Well, speaking of Garrett Wilson, let's just go to week 12 then, because the Jets are the Bears will be traveling to New York to take on the Jets. Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, another one of those head-to-head matchups of guys that came out of the same draft class. I think the Jets had a great draft, much like other people do. I don't think I'm saying anything prophetic there. However, once again, that does not translate into a great 2022. What's your take on this game, and then I guess the Jets in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jets had a great draft. I think the Jets so far have had a very good offseason in terms of free agency and all that stuff. So everything is set up there for them to win, right? But again, Robert Saleh going into his second year as a head coach, I like him as a coach, but we got to see him in terms of prove can he get this team to win, be competitive week in and week out. So obviously, Zach Wilson, the second overall pick last year, is going to be coming into his second season, just like Justin Fields. But if you just base this off of offseason activity and the acquisition of talent, you got to give this game to the Jets, right? But as you just noted, that's not whoever wins the offseason doesn't usually win in the regular season. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is a game. I actually put this down as a victory for the Bears. So just kind of going off of just a feeling here. I think that the Bears, I don't know if the Jets, I just don't believe right now into the Jets, even though they've made all these somewhat, upgrades in terms of personnel and all that stuff. They have to prove it to me. So, we'll see. But right now I have the Bears going in and getting a W.
Let's move on to week 13 real fast and then move past it. The Packers game at Soldier Field. We already talked about the Packers and what their current state is. You chalking this up for a loss?
Yeah, I got this. I got
Okay, let's talk about something that's actually worth talking about. Is that week 14 bye? I find kind of interesting. I thought it's great for a team that's kind of in the hunt or trying to make a playoff push, because you kind of rest up right before the last quarter of the season, which I think will be good for the Bears. Do you think that's going to have any effect on the season, however, Dan?
No, and I like it because, generally I like when teams get their bye week later on in the season. Like you said, if they're going for that second half drive, that playoff push, they can kind of rest up, get players healthy. But for the Bears, I think this would be an opportunity. Hey, if they're having a bad season and now they're saying, all right, we have veterans, our record is poor, for example. We have veterans that are getting playing time. Maybe do we have a young guy here we can probably plug in and get him, and him in there getting some playing time, some experience, and kind of look towards next season. So a lot of times these teams that kind of are in a rebuilding, remodeling mode, however you want to term it, Ryan Poles, that second half. If they have a rough first half with a new coaching staff, that second half, typically after the bye, is when they start getting some momentum. They start getting some, competitive, moral victories, if you will. And the next thing you know, by the end of the season, they're more competitive, and now they're winning games, and they can kind of carry that momentum into the off season and into the next season as well. So I think week 14 here, obviously coming off of week 14, you're going to have two back-to-back tough games. But I'm curious to see what the Bears do here. Where are they at in terms of the record, in terms of the season? What is the coaching staff thinking in terms of mentality? Are they going to give younger guys more playing time? Are they competitive? Are they in the playoff hunt? Do they have a chance? Are they one or two games out of the the wild card, the last wild card spot? Are they going to make a push for it? So this is going to be a very interesting time in terms of where the bye came at, and an interesting time in the season overall. So I'm very curious to see how this team is at this point at week 14.
Yeah, and then they get a nice little wake up call right out of the bye, because then they gotta host the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think got a lot better. They bring in they make the big draft day trade to bring in AJ Brown, and so a lot of this will depend, I guess, on the progression of Jalen Hurts. But what are your thoughts on the Eagles in general, and then when they make the late trek to Soldier Field in week 15?
Yeah, and I know Aldo's kind of maybe bark at me here, but I'm still not a big Jalen Hurts guy. I think he's a solid quarterback, but I just don't know if he's a guy that can be your game in and game out. So look at that face he's giving me. Look at that. I don't think he's going to be this starting successful quarterback in the NFL. I could be wrong. I mean the kid's overcome so many other things in his career, from Alabama being benched in favor of Tua, going back to Oklahoma, and getting drafted, and I believe a second round draft pick by the Eagles, and then obviously supplanting Carson Wentz, and then kind of taking over last year. So the thing about Hurts is that he's a dual threat quarterback, right? He's a guy that can beat you with his legs and his arm. The only thing is, his arm strength isn't the greatest, and his accuracy downfield isn't the greatest. So, obviously the Nick Sirianni does a great job of utilizing that RPO run pass option in their offense. Obviously, bringing a beast on the outside like AJ Brown is only going to help propel them. Don't forget about last year's first round pick Devontae Smith, who I think only going to get better in year 2. So they're going to have some weapons on the outside for Jalen Hurts. But until he proves it to me, I'm just going to have question marks with Jalen Hurts in terms of how effective he could be, especially winning games on the road late in the season.
And I wanted to ask you this real quick, because if you look at Jalen Hurts' output and where he throws the ball, to have a big guy like A.J. Brown to throw it downfield, that means Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball downfield, right? And that seems to be one of his issues. Is that how's that gonna mesh?
Well, that's the thing, right? We talk about his arm strength isn't the greatest. His accuracy has been all spotty here and there. He's been more effective, using his legs, and again, that RPO system that they use there with Nick Sirianni, the play caller. I think they're getting the best out of him now. Now with AJ Brown, what that does is he gives you a big body receiver, a guy that's he can extend away from his frame, make contested catches. So that's going to help Jalen Hurts. He's just going to get the ball in his area code. He's going to go up there and he's going to make a play on a football. So he came from a team with Ryan Tannehill, who was kind of similar in terms of a guy who's more athletic than accurate in terms of downfield, throwing the football. So he's kind of, and besides, I guess they're best friends. AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts are really good friends. So maybe they've been working on that chemistry, all along here in the offseason. So we'll see how that goes. But big receivers that can extend away from their and make contested catches downfield are quarterback's best friend, because you don't have to be that accurate. Just get the ball, like I said, in their area code, and they'll go up to they'll make a play on the football.
Well, let's go into the season of giving, more specifically Christmas Eve, where Bears fans get a big present to unwrap, and it's Josh Allen and the Bills.
They got a big lump of coal in their
yeah. That I was saying earlier, they could not have asked for a worse present as far as the NFL schedule goes, but probably don't need a whole hell of a lot of analyzing here, Danny. But what do you see from the Bills, and is there anything the Bears could do to neutralize that?
Yeah, it's to me, it's a tough matchup. I mean, obviously, the Bills are the cream of the crop, one of the creams of the crops in the AFC, and I know one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl and actually represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. So this is going to be a tough game. Obviously with that quarterback, Josh Allen, and all the weapons he has on offense. They added James Cook from Georgia in the backfield, give him a little bit of a gadget. Running back there, a guy can catch a ball in the backfield, a guy can run it as well. Von Miller coming off the edge. I think he proved last year that he's not done, in terms of how he helped the Rams get to that Super Bowl. So definitely a tough game, and this is just going to be too high of a step up in class for the Bears to go and compete with these guys.
So then we go into Week 17, where things are kind of interesting from a perspective of what's going to be on the line, if anything's going to be on the line. Week 17, they have to go to Detroit, and kind of to the point you made earlier. Are the Bears going to be, quote unquote, mathematically in the hunt, and so they're going to keep trying to win the games, or are they going to try to get more players experience that are in the long-term plans? I think a lot goes into that, but regardless, I think they will probably be favored against the Lions, but it's hard to tell in Week 17.
Right. And these are the games where I'm like, come on, you got to lose this game. You got a higher draft pick. And what happens? They always end up winning the game. So that's why I got them down as a victory, because they always end up doing this, right? I always want them to lose. They get a higher draft pick, but they always end up winning. So I think they're going to go in there. I think they're going to sweep the Lions in terms of this season series. And again, Lions are Don Burr. If you're out there, don't get mad, man. I know that the Lions added a lot of talent. They got a lot of talent. Oh, there he is. There he is. Ask and he shows up. But the Lions got a lot of talent. I just don't know about Dan Campbell as a head coach, and I just don't know about Jared Goff as a quarterback. So those are two big ifs for me. If I have question marks about your head coach and your quarterback, then I have big question marks about your overall team. So I think the Bears win this one, but we'll see.
And then once again, the Bears get to end their season with a game against the Vikings, which seems to be just how things usually happen for the last 25 years. But anyway, once again, probably the same kind of scenario as whenever they're playing the Lions. What's going to be the input? Could they play spoiler for the Vikings? Are the Bears, somehow in the hunt at this point? Right. Going to Minnesota, what do you see?
Actually, I believe this is at home, isn't it? This is at Soldier Field. This week 18 game.
Aldo, did you get the graphic?
Yeah, because they go to Minnesota week 5. Yep, so this is gonna be on that lakefront, nice, cold, brisk day. Kirk Cousins is not gonna want to be out there. I think their passing game is going to be hurting. I don't think those guys are going to be wanting, make those plays downfield. They don't want to get hit. So I think this is a game the Bears come out of. And again, this could be two teams just vying for draft position, or this could be, maybe the Minnesota, they could be vying for a playoff spot. Who knows? We'll see. But, I got the Bears down for a victory here. I just think the Bears have Kirk Cousins' number. And I think, other than last year where they got that victory, I think the Bears have been very, very good against Kirk Cousins. They do a very good job, stopping Dalvin Cook for the most part. Now, I know Akeem Hicks was a big part of that, and he's gone. So we'll see how that turns out. But, I just feel like, last game of the season, at home, I think the Bears are going to want to kind of give their fans a nice victory to go ahead and, give them the farewell of the season. So I got them with the victory. So my record, very close to yours, John. I got them at 9-8.
Okay.
So I got him 9-8. I think that's a very, very good start for Matt Eberflus if he does go 9-8 with a team that came into the season with a lot of question marks. We just touched on it briefly. Aldo knows I have a lot of question marks on the offensive line. I have a lot of question marks on the defensive line. And for me, if your offense and defensive line are spotty, or if there's holes in them, you don't have a very, very good, solid team. So hopefully they rectify those holes from now until the start of the season. Whether it's free agency, pickups, whether it's just players getting better, whether it's players getting coached up from the previous regime and just getting better and solidifying a position. Maybe it's the, Ryan Poles is very, very high on Luke and the play calling and utilizing, building an offense around Justin Fields. And I love hearing that. That's what I've been calling for all year last year. So, he's very, very high on what this offense in terms of the play caller, what potentially they could do for the Bears, for the Bears offense. So we'll see. And that one thing I do want to mention is like the Bears made, when they signed Equanimeous St. Brown, I think I just butchered his name, but when they signed him, everybody, it's a 1-year contract. It's just like, it's a body. But guys, about it. Luke Getsy was the receivers coach with the Packers. He's the one who helped develop Devontae Adams. If Luke Getsy says, go get St. Brown, he knows what is out there. He knows the potential in this kid. Remember, this kid came out of Notre Dame. He was a pretty good prospect. It was 6'4", ran about a 4.4, 4.5, I believe it was. So he's got size, he's got speed. And Getsy did say in his press conference this week, he says, his best football is yet to come. So, he saw what was going on there with Green Bay. We knew, we know they have a quarterback that could be a little bit, moody, if you will. And then maybe St. Brown dropped a couple of passes in practice, and then Rodgers kind of just shunned him in the games and didn't throw his way. We saw him do it to Allen Lazard in that playoff game, wide open down the middle of the field, and just kind of forced the ball to Devontae Adams. So, maybe Getsy is onto something here. Maybe St. Brown could be a surprise. Obviously Velus Jones is the guy they're going to utilize in this offense to create, opportunities, whether it's, handing the ball off to him, slip screen, bubble screens, go routes down the field. So, that's what Ryan Poles is from what I've gathered from his, and I think he's very transparent. I think he's very open so far with the media and with the fans. I think he's relying on this offensive system to kind of create opportunities, create plays. And then again, we talked about the defense, right? Eberflus defense comes from that Rod Marinelli, Lovie Smith, Tony Dungy, cover 2, Tampa 2, if you want to call it, right to the football, punch the football, rake the football, get the football, create opportunities for your offense. And I think that's where the Bears, kind of hope that they are in the season. Again, if they're 9-8, I think that's a successful, whether they make the playoffs or not. I think that's a very good start for the Matt Eberflus era.
Yeah, and I said earlier, in the hunt this year is a lot different than in the hunt last year because
Right.
you look at the team, it was trying to win now, it was trying to make one last stand, it was trying to be competitive. If you can turn around and almost have the same record in a rebuild, I think that is very promising. And just for fun, I think I looked up some of the early lines. The Bears are opening up as 6.5-point underdogs against the 49ers, which I think is pretty high for they're at home. So
For
usually
home
get
team.
three
Yep.
just for being at home. Yeah, I'm no Mike North, but I think that's pretty high. If I 6.5 points in week one. I did want to ask about the offensive line because a lot of people are talking about the offensive line. Who do we predict, or who are you looking that might be filling that right guard position? Is it going to be Dakota Dozier, or who's
No.
going to be playing right guard for them come week
Well,
one?
if it's Dakota Dozier playing right guard, I hope Justin Fields is not starting a quarterback. So it's in my opinion, like I think there's potentially three guys you put in there. So you have Tevin Jenkins, you have Larry Borum, and you have Zach Thomas, this kid out of San Diego State. He's a guy that I liked. I broke him down on Draft on Tap. I liked him as one of those day three guys that you take a flyer on. And one thing with him is he's an athletic guy. He fits this wide zone scheme. He's a guy that can move laterally, maintain his blocks, got solid length, solid size. But he's got position versatility. He's played left tackle, right guard, and right tackle. So if I stick him in there, and he's a guy that can battle with Borum and Jenkins. So of those three, two of them are going to start. One's going to be right tackle, one's going to be my right guard. So for me, if I had to guess right now, I'm thinking either Borum or Jenkins as a right tackle. And I say Zach Thomas is your right guard. That's how I would line them up right now.
Then who kicks out to left tackle? Then is it the leftover of that, or who?
Well, that's the thing. So I think if Borum, say Borum loses the right tackle position, I think he'll be the swing tackle. I think Braxton Jones is another kid that athletically, size-wise, he fits the bill. It's what you look for. His big thing is consistency, right? He's a guy that's 6'5", has a lot of trouble getting his pad level lowered. He always gets kind of jolted back. There are times he struggled at the Senior Bowl with speed. So he's a guy that needs to be coached up. But the one guy I'm hope for here, and although probably tired of me to keep saying this guy's name, but Dwayne Brown is still out there. Dwayne Brown is a guy, as a veteran. I'm not sure what his deal is. I'm not sure if he's looking for a winning situation. He might not be interested in coming to a team that could be rebuilding, but he's a guy that's a veteran. He's not what he used to be, but he's definitely a guy that can come in and give you solid reps at left tackle and let a kid like Braxton Jones develop and learn behind him. So that's what I'm hoping out for. But if they don't go get a Dwayne Brown, I would let Braxton Jones kind of go and compete there with, whether it's Julian Davenport. If you want, I don't see Larry Borum playing left tackle in the NFL. I don't think he's got the ability to play left tackle in the NFL. I know other people do. So we'll see what they do there. But if for me, it would be a kid like Braxton Jones, hopefully a veteran like Dwayne Brown. But if not, you would just let Jones compete with the veteran.
Do you think that, Lucas Patrick most likely going to be the starting center for
Yes.
this team, but Mustafa's still on the team. So is that just like
he
a
is for
body
now.
in camp? Yeah,
He is for now.
Is
So
that
Doug
just a
Kramer,
body in camp, or?
Yeah, Doug Kramer and Mustafa are going to battle for that backup center spot. The one thing with Mustafa and Kramer, I think they're both centers. I don't think neither one of them can play guard. I think so. Those guys are going to be battling for that backup center spot. The one thing about Doug Kramer, if you put on his tape at Illinois, he's not the biggest guy, but he's quick. And again, he's tailor-made for this wide zone scheme. He's quick to that second level, does a good job of flipping his hips into the gaps and blocking off that backside pursuit. And he's tenacious, right? He's a guy that could just keep blocks through the echo of the whistle, not dirty or not anything like that, but just a guy that just keeps and he's working his ass off, and those guys tend to coaches tend to like those guys, and they tend to make rosters. So I think right now for the backup center, it's going to be between Mustafa and Kramer. And remember, Lucas Package can always kick out to right guard, and then Kramer or Mustafa, whoever makes a team, can then fill in at center if you, for example, if your right guard gets hurt.
And one more thing before we kind of wrap this up is I do want to ask about the linebackers, because they're going to look vastly different. Where I know it's fun to talk about the offense and who's going to play where, and Justin Fields' progression on the wide receivers and the hodgepodge core that they have, but the linebackers are going to look vastly different this year, and not just different, but they're going to be in a different scheme as
Right.
well. So obviously you have Roquan anchoring that, and then is it Nicholas Morrow and Matthew Adams covering the three linebacker spot, or how do you kind of see that whole defensive scheme kind of flowing out, because even the line is going to be different?
Right. So the big question for me at linebacker is who's going to be playing middle, who's going to play weak side linebacker, because the weak side linebacker is the key guy in this defense, right? So if that's Roquan Smith, I think he's in line for a huge season, and that's why I'm kind of hoping. I hope they kind of kick Roquan out to that weak side linebacker. We saw Darius Leonard with the Colts when they kicked him off from middle to weak side, he just kind of took off, right? He became a superstar. He was already a pretty damn good player. He became a star defender on that Colts defense. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping Roquan gets that weak side linebacker. You put Morrow in middle. Morrow came with high regards. We had Vinny. I can't pronounce his last name. Remember Aldo? Is it Bangasari? How do you? It's Italian, right?
Yeah, it's Italian.
Learn it.
Yeah,
I know. I got to learn it. But he covers the Raiders for the Las Vegas Journal, and he said that Morrow was playing sensational before he got injured last year, and that if they made the playoffs, they were going to bring him back. That's how big of an impact he had on defense. So I'm liking this Morrow signing. We'll see how it is. Another athletic, quick, fast linebacker. I stick him in the middle. And then that strong side linebacker, that's going to be a guy that's going to only be involved in about 15% of the plays. Eberflus said they're going to be in nickel about 85% of the time. And that means 5 DBs, 2 linebackers, and 4 down linemen. So, at that point, you can kind of mix and match. Do you bring an extra safety in? Jaquan Brisker, the rookie from Penn State, is pretty physical. He could a guy that can be good in terms of in the box, could be an extra linebacker there if you want to play him. DeAndre Houston Carson is a guy that's been, known to be, reliable on the box player as well. So you can mix and match there. So I only see, those 2 linebackers, Morrow and Roquan, playing the majority of the time. Jack Sanborn, that kid from Wisconsin, limited physically and in terms of athletic ability, but he's a really smart kid. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes the team. Some of the other guys, Adams, I think he's a special teams. There's another kid they picked up, I believe it was with the Packers last year. Joe Thomas, I think his name is as well. He's also a guy that's very well known for his prowess on special teams. So, any one of those guys, Caleb Johnson, thank you, STC. Caleb Johnson is a kid that I liked a lot in terms of his speed and his athletic ability. I see him more as a middle linebacker, but, I wouldn't put it past them to try and start him at strong side linebacker. So, so they have some options there for that strong side. It's not a position I think they're going to invest in terms of going out and getting another free agent. I just think they're going to just see what they got there. And like I said, that player is only going to be on the field for maybe 15% of the play, according to Matt Eberflus. So we're going to see more 5 DBs back there, playing that nickel coverage.
So we went through the entire schedule. Danny has him at 9-8. I have him at 8-9. Aldo, what did you have him at? 2-15. What did you?
Yeah, I'm gonna withhold. I know it's offer fun and so forth, but I'm gonna withhold. I'm just gonna say that I don't care if they go 0-17. At least if I at least see progress, if I at least see our quarterback developing and goes from having a disappointing rookie season for reasons we all know, we're not blaming him, but he goes from that to becoming a surefire franchise quarterback, and that we will win a lot more games because there's still holes here and there on the offensive line, wide receiver depth, and so forth. So I almost feel like wins and losses aren't that important to me, at least right now. I just want to see progress, and I think we will.
I agree, and I disagree a little bit, Aldo, because I agree in terms of you want to see progress, you want to see development, you want to see young guys get better, you want to see Justin Fields. To me, this whole season is about Justin Fields. Justin Fields getting developed. How's his offense built around Justin Fields? What is he doing in terms of the utilization of his athletic ability? Is he rolling him out more out of the pocket? I know this offense is based off of play action, so I know there's going to be a lot of play action, and then now you take some shots downfield. So that I feel confident about, but I want to see him get better. I want to see him nurtured in his offense. I want to see him take command. And so far, what we heard about Justin Fields, he's the first guy in, last guy out. He's a guy that's learning this offense inside out, and I think he should be ready to go week 1. But the thing is, for me, is like you want to see some victories, right? You don't want to see these guys just continue to play their ass off Sunday after Monday or Thursdays or whatever, and then just lose. So you want to see some victories there. You want to see them kind of get rewarded with a bone here and there. So hey, you look at that. You busted your ass. You gave effort. This whole coaching staff is going to be about effort, and it's going to be hard to give your full effort if you're getting your ass beat every Sunday. So I think that's why wins are important. Now they don't have to go 10-7 or 11-6 or whatever. I'm just saying that they have to show some progress with victories. At least, you don't want to go 3-14, for example, and just say, we were competitive, because, in NFL, there are no moral victories, right? We guys know, especially with this team, they're going to be asking these guys to run and just hustle. So, it gets a little harder when you're not seeing the results there as well. So, that's the thing where I agree with you, Aldo. I want to see young guys get developed, but I also want to see some victories here to give these guys some motivation.
Yeah, and real quick, Aldo, I see exactly where you're coming from, but I think that if you see that progress, then this schedule isn't that hard. So there's going to be a lot of fringe games. So if he is showing progress, that should translate into wins. Because I don't see too many games on here where I think they're going to get their doors blown off. I mean, there's games where I think we're going to lose, but I don't think there's going to be any games where they're just going to get there's too many games where they get steamrolled. So if he is showing progress, that should translate into some wins. So if they end up going, I keep getting to 16. There's 17 games. So if they go like 4-13, then how much progress was made if they're losing those games? But if they're able to, if they're having a strong 7-10 or 8-9 or 9-8, then there has to be some progress with Justin Fields. I don't know if you can have one without the other, because I don't see another 2018 defense where they're just going to carry the team to victory. I think if they're going to win 7, 8, 9 games, it's because Justin Fields made a really big leap, and he was able to carry them to a couple victories. So I completely see where you're coming from. I just don't think that you can have one without at least a hint of the other. Where if he shows that progression, it has to kind of translate into some wins.
I do think that there's the possibility that this could be a really streaky season, or they'll win 2 in a row, but then lose 3 in a row. Yeah. Win 2 in a row and then lose 2 or 3.
My schedule is like that. Although I like 2 losses, Same. 4 wins, 3 losses, 4 wins, 3 wins in a row, 3 losses in a row, and then 2 wins. That's like all streaks. There is no win loss.
Yeah, right. So trust me, nobody really cares what I think their one-loss record is going to be. I just want this season to start already. I want the warm weather first, but let's get to some football. And John, I know your Buffone 55 will be back pretty soon, right?
Oh man, I can't wait. We're gonna start Buffone 55 back up next month, whenever some of the OTAs and some of the guys are reporting, and then we're gonna start this back up in June. We're gonna go maybe every other week or maybe once a month until August, and then we're back in the swing of things every friggin' week. You're gonna hear from me. So I hope you enjoyed your time off from Buffone on the Barroom Network, because I'm coming back, and I'm coming back yelling. And if the Bears are losing, I'm gonna be yelling even more. And if they're winning, I'm gonna be yelling even more. So just get used to it, because I'm back on the Barroom. I'm so excited to be back, not just talking Bears, but to be back with some of my good friends here. Danny, you have more knowledge in your head than I can even begin to think about. Like I don't know how you get all that knowledge in there without it exploding. So I appreciate you being on, breaking down some of these games, because I just love talking Bears. I don't care if it's May, April, June, February. It doesn't matter. I just love talking the Bears, and I'm back here, and I can't wait to get that 6th season underway. Buffone 55. We're gonna be back on Wednesdays, same time, same place. I'm excited. Although I'm sure there's a lot more going on in the Barroom Network, so you're gonna give me an entire segment to talk about Buffone 55. So what else do we got going on with the Barroom?
Well, I think that Danny Shimon is going to be joining us on Bear Football. So right after the games, we'll have Danny's expertise in evaluating what just happened. And John and I are planning something totally different with our hit show last year, the Bear Debate, where John and Tyler went off every week. We're going to do something where we're going to have guest debaters from all over, whether it's guys who are barflies or other podcasters or beat writers and so forth. We've compiled a nice list of people, and we'll be sending invitations out soon. And so it'll be a real debate in terms of people from outside the barroom going against each other. So that's going to be a fun thing. And then we're also planning some more surprises with our Bears coverage. And trust me, we will have new, fresh programming every day of the week, every day of the work week, this upcoming Chicago Bears season.
And I don't know anybody going up against John debating it has a chance to win because of his energy, his passion, and the voice, the volume. The decibel level goes up high, and it's like, all right, no, you're right. No,
Danny, all I got is this loud voice in my neck veins. That's all I got. So I got.
Yeah, but that's intimidating, man. You know, some people are like,
I gotta utilize them. I gotta be angry. I gotta peacock around because half the time I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I gotta. It's all about making it look like you know what you're talking about. And right before we sign off, thanks to everybody who said it was nice to see me again. I can't believe people actually care what the hell I'm saying. So this is incredible to see some of these people that are excited to hear me on this show. So thank you so much. I can't believe that people actually listen to this. It's still, I've been doing it for 6 years. It still baffles me that people actually listen to me. So I do appreciate that.
And then Aldo, be careful how you say guest debater, because you got to say it real slow. You know what? I kind of.
Trust me.
What? We're live now. we gotta be careful.
I've been practicing. But great to talk football with you guys. I can't wait to have Tyler back with us, and we'll be talking football. A lot during the off season. I got in communication with Greg Gabriel. He and I are going to do a show next week. He, like Danny said earlier in the show, he had Dante Pettis rated as the number 4 overall wide receiver when he came out of college. And so he's been making calls to find out what happened to this guy. This guy was so promising. So
it was just injuries. It's injuries and inconsistencies. I mean, there's games where I'm sorry to cut you off here, but
no.
You know, there's games where we was with the 49ers. You see him, whether it's a punt return for a touchdown, you see him making a long play downfield, because the guy has got 4.4 speed. He can stretch that. He can stretch the field. But this, then he'd have a pulled hamstring or a knee tweak or something like that. And he was off for, 2 or 3 games. And then obviously that 49ers just kind of got tired of waiting for him. And then they brought in guys like Deebo Samuel, some of the, Brandon Ayuk, and they kind of replaced them in the lineup. So again, last year, the Giants, I think he had like 10 catches. I don't know how much were the yardage and like a couple touches. But again, he got hurt and he was out for the rest of the season. So talented kid. It's just kind of keeping him, on the field and keep him healthy is what's the thing with him. So what's the thing that John Fox always says? The best ability is availability. So that's been Dante Pettis' issue so far.
One of the few things I agreed with John Fox about. By the way, did any of you guys notice the little thumbs up down on the lower left hand of your screen there?
I did.
I do see that.
It's a subliminal message for everyone to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the Barroom Network, and tell other Bears fans about what we're doing here at the Barroom Network. We would love to share what we're doing with more and more people. But all of you guys that were here live in the chat and interacting with us, really, really had fun interacting with you guys while listening to Danny and John. You guys are the best.
The
best.
Hold on, real quick. Is it really subliminal if you have to tell people about it? It's not.
It's more of
Look
a
at
hint.
the subliminal message we're overtly putting in the corner, and let me explain this subliminal message to you.
The only thing missing was a subliminal arrow pointing at it.
This is a subliminal message with an arrow pointing to it.
And did you catch my errors on the graphics? I left Matt Ryan out of the key losses for the Falcons.
Starting quarterback.
Who cares?
Hey, you put those together so fast. I can't believe there weren't more on there. So props to you for putting those things together, man.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, John, I'll let you close the show, brother.
Once again, appreciate everybody who was listening and watching this, whether you're watching the live version or listening to the live version, or you're listening to the podcast version, or you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you for each and every one of you for paying attention to us. I can't tell you how much it means to me personally. So thank you. And whether it's your first time or 55th time, we appreciate you. So that will do it for Aldo Gandia and Danny Shimon. I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next time on the Barroom Network.
Bye, everyone.